here we have a sample of the much sought after mineral unobtainium from the film. And unobtainium, as it's written here, it's a real term that scientists have used since the 50s to refer to something that has kind of like magical properties or unattainable properties. So it didn't actually carry the characteristics that it does in the film, but it is grounded again in kind of like a real science definition, science term. And right behind it we have probably the largest exhibit that we have here, which is the armored mobility platform, and it's very similar to the one that was seen in the movie. This one is a reproduction, but it was created based on the exact same model, exact same parts as the ones that were used in the film. So this one's about 13.5 feet tall, and they say it's lighter than a compact car. Some actual costume that was worn by one of the characters. Also with some extra additional props, explosives, and his gun. It's good to really be able to see up close, like the detail that went into these costumes, and you can see even like splattering little bits of mud or dirtying up of the gloves and the knee pads. It gives that authenticity that really comes across on the film. Here's another prop that's very interesting. The story behind this is a gas mask that's used, as you know, on the world of Pandora. Humans can't breathe the air, so they have to wear these special masks. But during the filming, James Cameron saw that the film, the clear shield, actually blocked some of the face of the actor or actresses, or created unwanted reflections. So what he actually did was remove the film, had them shoot with this empty mask, and then they actually went in later and digitally added the film, where he could control how much transparency there was and what kind of reflections he had on it. So that also, I think speaks to the testament of all the details that were really focused on. They didn't want to compromise on anything. They had very specific ideas in framing this film for how well they wanted the effects to look, and they were willing to go to these lengths to make sure everything was shot just perfectly. So in the film, these wood sprites are life forms that basically are attracted to the human energy or the animal energy, and so this experience kind of emulates that, and it's great for all age groups, kids, adults. They just basically come up to this wall, and based on their silhouette, these wood sprites will gather down to them. This area we refer to as the Link Shack, which pays homage to the little mobile base that was seen in the film. It's basically where they would house the Avatar program, but also do a lot of supplemental science research, study plants and animals that were on Pandora. And that's basically what you can do here in this area. You can study all the different plants and life forms that were conceived for the creation of the film. This exhibit, I like particularly, you have about 20 different cards here, each of them with a little marker on the back. As you place them on this table, it'll identify it and give you a lot of supplemental information about that particular animal, landscape, or plant that you're looking at. So this particular one is the die horse, which are the horses that the characters were riding. And you can actually step through the progression. You can see what started off as a concept image. It turned into a mold, a clay mold, and then they would, work that further, and eventually evolved into the animal that you see on screen. And this is a good one because it doesn't just have science involved in it. It has an element of art. As you can see, what started off as sketches for the different kind of plant forms that you might find on this world. They started being creative and thinking about just different ideas of what plants might look like. And in this interactive, visitors actually get to create their own kind of plant life. So let's say you could actually pick the different kind of stalks that you want. Is it thick? Is it wide? Is it wispy? And they actually show you kind of real world equivalents, because a lot of these were actually based on real plants and animals that do exist. For instance, a very famous scene in the movie has Jake touching these, they called them kind of like umbrella plants. They would retract into the ground. These are actually based on a deep sea sea worm that basically lives by the thermal vents at the very bottom of the ocean. And they look very similar to that. They kind of spiral up as they grow, and they will actually retract when they're touched. So I guess that the idea spawned the idea of a plant that exists on this alien world of Pandora that, kind of emulates the same characteristics. So basically, as we know, the Navi are much larger, much taller than humans are, and they've actually mathematically calculated that the Navi are 1.67 times taller than the average human. So average Navi is about 9 feet 7 inches, and they would wear a 17 and a half size shoe, which is what I'm wearing right here. So it's a good spot. Just take some fun pictures. Imagine what you would be like in the shoes of a Navi. Kind of intimidating if you think of them running around through those different scenes. Here's some more props. This is interesting to see that for a lot of different props, there were digital versions that were created for the characters, for the computer-generated scenes, but there also were a lot of true-made, real-life ones. So this is an example. This is a backpack that one of the avatars wore, and for certain scenes they needed the real thing to be there, so they actually created this giant backpack full of these little, I think they're research tools, and the boots as well. The cases right here are studies, and while they may not have appeared actually in the film, they were definitely important tools in the production of the film. So basically what these studies would do is they would allow the computer graphics artists to visualize something, a character, an animal, a piece of jewelry, a piece of a costume. And they would actually get to pick it up, feel it, look at it from different angles, different directions, before they actually went into the computer and created that 3D version of it. But it really helped. I think James Cameron himself said he didn't want these artists to create characters out of a vacuum. He wanted them to give them something palpable that they can actually see and manipulate to really get an authentic, on-screen equivalent. Over here we have reproductions of studies for the different animals, and these beautiful pieces over here. These never saw the film at all because, obviously there were all digital versions of these, but they actually had a real costume designer come in and hand make each of these different costume pieces, and there's quite a bit of detail and intricacy involved in them, but they were really just the models for the computer graphic artists to create a three-dimensional version on a computer of. Creating the Navi characters, even their look and mannerisms, their morphology, it was a process that went through a couple different iterations. And so the thing about creating an alien character on screen is, they have to be foreign enough to be different from humans, but at the same time, they have to be likable. And visitors, the average person will have to be able to look at this in person and say, I can get along with them, I can relate to them. So as you can see, some of the early concept sketches they had, they look a little more, I don't know, let's say, reptilian, or they just didn't have the same features, maybe like missing a nose or long tendrils and things like that. Eventually they found a balance, and they adopted some human characteristics, actually some cat-like characteristics with the ears and the nose, until it was something that I think people could believe in. And similarly, their language was also crafted very carefully. They did acquire the help of a professor of linguistics in creating the made-up language of the Navi. So in this interactive, basically, you can don these headsets and you can listen on how to say some of the key phrases in Navi, which is actually very difficult to do. But just understanding and going to that extra level of making it a realistic sounding language, but at the same time, it doesn't want to make it sound like gibberish. In the world of Pandora, bioluminescence is very big. A lot of the plants and animals glow, and I think there's more of a depth of a story to that, and the reason why, part of the reason because of where they were located and how much sunlight they got per day. But bioluminescence was a very big thing. It also creates a very magical, mystical-looking place, so the moviegoers can really be transported. We have a fun exhibit here that talks a little bit about bioluminescence, and it's the bioluminescent activity, and it's made for up to 6 players to join in at a time. And basically, you are one of 6 real-life bioluminescent animals. And what you would do is you can guide your animal through this little terrain here. Your job is to consume as many of these fish as possible using your bioluminescent abilities, but at the same time, you don't want to be eaten by the larger one. So it teaches the balance that these animals do have to use between using the bioluminescence to attract prey, but also not using their bioluminescence to avoid being seen by larger predators. The second half of the exhibition, which really talks about the process and the techniques, the technology, and the science that went into filming this movie. performance capture lets our visitors experience what it's like to be an actor on the film, on the set of Avatar. And basically, the program will identify them, and it will mimic their movements on an on-screen computer-generated image. So basically, everything they do on screen in this little stage area will be translated to their actor on top. So they can pick one of two scenes, and they can try to experience what it's like to be the actor navigating the scene when you don't really know what's going on, but at the same time you have to do certain movements and certain actions that corresponds to what's happening on screen. But it's a very good, quick, easy, illustrative way and a full body way of experiencing I think what those actors had to go through. Acting in basically this warehouse when they were supposed to be on this lush tropical world of Pandora. This is the suit that the actor Sam Worthington actually wore for the performance capture elements. As you can see, it's a very specially designed suit with color-coordinated panels. So basically the cameras can identify what's the right side of the body, what's the left side of the body. They even added elements like the ears and the hair braids and things like that, so the actors can really kind of switch their hair around or move in a way that would emulate what will be seen on screen. It's more of the props the character had to be wearing, or holding a bow or a gun or a knife. This is also the mask, as I mentioned before, that they use to consistently put the markers on the same places, so the camera can identify, what are facial cheek movements, what are eye movements, eyebrows, and lips, things like that. Virtual camera, which is another piece of impressive technology. So because so many of the scenes were completely computer generated, shooting them or filming them, it really took a tool that allowed James Cameron to kind of like imagine if you were actually there. So the virtual camera, it's almost like a portable monitor, but it has these handles, and you could really kind of move it almost as if you were moving a real camera, and the image that changes on the monitor would correspond to the changes that you would see on that computer-generated scene right there. So over here we have one of the actual ones that was used in the production. And our visitors actually can try this for themselves in this interactive right here. So as you can see, we pick up this, and it's almost like one of those virtual cameras, and they'll give us a scene, and our job is to film that scene however we see fit. And we can use all the capabilities of the virtual camera, so I can zoom in or zoom out. I can focus on certain elements, focus on the trees. Really, it's a much more realistic way for a camera person or a director to get an idea of the composition of the scene that they're shooting. Our museum is all about science, as you can tell, and it ties in very well, this Avatar exhibition, because this is also all about science. I don't think many people realize when they watch the film that a lot of the animals, the plants, even the environments were heavily based in science. So they didn't just create this alien life form pull it out of a hat. They actually put a lot of care and detail into making sure that it made sense biologically. So I think what that does to the viewers is it makes it more realistic. I think they can look at this and they can understand that this is a little bit of a whimsical area, but at the same time it's something that's kind of grounded in real science. Also, what they'll see is the science behind the filmmaking process, because so much of this movie was computer generated. By being able to see the tools that they used to make it kind of blend the real life scenes that they filmed with the computer generated scenes and make it this really seamless kind of transition between the two of them. And I think that also makes it a more realistic experience for the viewers, and it lets them truly transport themselves to this world, this believable world of Pandora.